Buckingham Palace rarely confirms anything that changes the direction of the royal family overnight. When it does, the message is usually brief, carefully worded, and easy to overlook. But every so often, a seemingly routine update carries consequences far beyond the words themselves. That is exactly why royal commentators and long-time palace observers have been paying close attention to the latest developments surrounding Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, and her children. At first glance, it appears to be a simple matter of titles, nothing more, nothing dramatic. Or is it? Because behind the polished smiles, centuries of tradition, and carefully choreographed public appearances, every royal title carries meaning. It speaks of responsibility, it signals trust, and sometimes it quietly reveals how the next chapter of the monarchy is already being written. This latest development has prompted renewed discussion among royal experts about Prince William's growing influence within the institution while King Charles continues to reign. Although Buckingham Palace has made public announcements regarding royal titles and succession over the years, commentators have increasingly debated whether certain recent decisions also reflect the long-term direction the future king hopes to take. Before we uncover why so many people are reading between the lines, one question stands above all the others. If you were preparing the future of the monarchy, would you reward loyalty and quiet service, or would you keep everything exactly as it has always been? Thank you for sharing your thoughts below. Every perspective adds something valuable to the conversation. And if you enjoy thoughtful royal documentaries that explore the stories behind the headlines, subscribe to Royal Family series so you never miss the next royal development, hidden detail, or unexpected revelation waiting just beyond the palace gates. Because this story does not begin with William, it begins decades earlier, long before today's headlines. Long before discussions about succession filled newspaper columns, long before questions emerged about who would help carry the weight of the crown into a new generation. For years, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, quietly built a reputation unlike almost anyone else within the royal family. She rarely dominated front cages. She almost never became the center of controversy. Instead, she became known for consistency, engagement after engagement, year after year. Whether representing the crown at home or supporting humanitarian causes overseas, she developed a reputation for approaching public service with calm determination rather than spectacle. Her work, particularly supporting women affected by conflict and championing preventable blindness initiatives, earned respect from many charities and international organizations, while royal observers frequently described her as one of the monarchy's most dependable working members. Alongside her stood Prince Edward, whose own approach reflected much the same philosophy: quiet, reliable, steady. Together, they became a branch of the House of Windsor that rarely demanded attention, yet almost always delivered when duty called. It was precisely that reputation that made recent conversations surrounding their children so fascinating, because for years the public understood that Lady Louise Windsor and James had been raised differently, not separated from royal tradition, but protected from unnecessary public attention. In a widely discussed 2020 interview, Sophie explained that although her children were entitled to use the style of prince and princess under long-standing royal rules, the family had chosen not to use those titles while raising them, saying they were likely to pursue ordinary careers. At the time, many interpreted those remarks as a clear indication that Louise and James would remain largely outside the spotlight. It seemed like a settled decision, a future already mapped out. Then something changed, not with a dramatic palace announcement, not with a grand ceremony, but through a sequence of developments that encouraged royal commentators to ask whether the future of Edward and Sophie's family might now look very different from what many had once expected. James's use of the title Earl of Wessex following his father's elevation to Duke of Edinburgh was entirely consistent with the established peerage system, yet the timing of renewed public attention surrounding the family's future has sparked broader discussion. Was this simply tradition unfolding exactly as planned, or were these developments pointing towards something larger? That question becomes even more compelling when viewed against the wider challenges facing the monarchy. King Charles has spoken openly about maintaining a smaller core of working royals. Several senior members of the family have reduced public duties because of age or health. The number of experienced working royals has naturally become smaller over time. Meanwhile, Prince William and Catherine continue to shoulder an expanding schedule while also raising their young family. It is within that changing landscape, not through official confirmation of a new strategy, but through public observation and ongoing royal commentary, that Sophie's family has become the focus of increasing attention. And the deeper the timeline becomes, the more one remarkable pattern begins to emerge. Because this story is no longer just about a title. It is about why some of the quietest members of the royal family may suddenly be standing much closer to the center of its future than almost anyone realized. The growing attention surrounding James and Lady Louise did not emerge overnight. It developed quietly, one appearance at a time, one decision at a time, one public moment that seemed ordinary until it was placed beside the next. For years, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh made a deliberate choice to give their children as normal an upbringing as possible while remaining connected to royal tradition. That approach was widely discussed after Sophie's 2020 interview, in which she explained that although her children were entitled to use the style of prince and princess under rules established in 1917, they were being raised with the expectation that they might one day pursue careers outside full-time royal life. At the time, many believed that chapter had already been written. The future appeared settled. Lady Louise would continue her education. James would grow up largely outside the glare of public attention. The family would support the monarchy while living comparatively private lives. But history has a way of changing course, not through dramatic announcements, through changing circumstances. As the years passed, the royal family entered one of the most significant periods of transition in modern times. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II marked the end of an extraordinary era and the beginning of a new reign under King Charles III. With that transition came constitutional changes, new responsibilities, and renewed public interest in how the monarchy would evolve for future generations. Prince Edward's appointment as Duke of Edinburgh in 2023 reflected a long-held wish associated with his late father, Prince Philip, and represented official recognition of decades of public service. As a consequence of that change, James began using the courtesy title Earl of Wessex, consistent with the traditions of the British peerage. On paper, it was a routine constitutional progression. In practice, it prompted a broader conversation. Royal historians noted that titles within the monarchy are rarely viewed in isolation. They often represent continuity, family legacy, and the responsibilities expected of future generations. While there has been no official confirmation that James or Lady Louise will become working royals, commentators have increasingly discussed how their roles could evolve if the monarchy continues to adapt to changing demands. Those conversations did not arise without reason. The number of senior working royals has naturally become smaller over time. Several experienced members of the family have reduced their public duties because of age. King Charles has continued treatment for cancer while remaining committed to his constitutional responsibilities, leading to adjustments in parts of the royal diary. Meanwhile, the Prince and Princess of Wales have continued balancing public service with raising their 3 young children, while Catherine herself gradually returned to public engagements following her own cancer treatment and announcement that she was in remission. Every one of those developments changed the landscape, slowly, almost invisibly. Then another pattern became impossible to ignore. Whenever major national events brought the royal family together, public attention increasingly turned toward those younger members who carried themselves with quiet confidence rather than seeking attention. Lady Louise, in particular, earned praise for her composed public appearances and for maintaining interests that reflected her family's traditions, including carriage driving, a sport closely associated with her grandfather, Prince Philip. James remained far less visible. That, perhaps, made the public even more curious, because throughout royal history, those seen least often sometimes become the figures people most want to understand. Yet Sophie never appeared eager to accelerate that attention. Her public speeches remained focused on service. Her overseas visits continued to highlight humanitarian causes. Her message rarely changed: duty before recognition, service before status. It became one of the defining characteristics of her public life. Many royal commentators believe that consistency has strengthened public confidence in the Edinburgh family over the years, not because they sought influence, but because they appeared comfortable carrying out responsibilities without becoming the center of every headline. Perhaps that is why discussions surrounding William's future have increasingly included their names. Not because of dramatic palace intrigue, not because of sensational headlines, but because every institution eventually depends on trusted people prepared to serve when called upon. And that raises a much larger question. If the monarchy is preparing for another generation, who will be standing beside the future king when that moment finally arrives? The answer may be taking shape far more quietly than most people realize. And in the next part of this story, one overlooked promise made years ago and one remarkable decision following Queen Elizabeth II's passing begin to reveal why Sophie's family may hold a far more important place in the monarchy's future than anyone first imagined.
The answer did not arrive through a palace conference. It emerged through patterns, small ones, easy to miss, but when placed side by side, those patterns began telling a much larger story about how the monarchy may be preparing for the years ahead. One of the most significant shifts came after the accession of King Charles III. His reign began during an extraordinary period of transition. Alongside the constitutional responsibilities that accompany every new monarch, he also inherited an institution facing modern expectations unlike any seen by previous generations. Public trust, financial accountability, digital media, and global attention now shape nearly every royal engagement. Against that backdrop, the concept of a streamlined monarchy became more than a long-discussed ambition. It became a practical challenge. King Charles had spoken for years about maintaining a smaller group of working royals, believing a more focused institution would better reflect modern Britain. Yet every state visit, every investiture, every military ceremony, every charity patronage, and every Commonwealth engagement still required experienced members of the family to represent the crown. The mathematics were impossible to ignore.
Duty could not simply disappear because the number of working royals became smaller. Someone still had to meet veterans. Someone still had to visit hospitals. Someone still had to support charities that depended upon royal patronage. Someone still had to represent continuity. That reality has prompted many royal historians and constitutional commentators to ask whether trusted members of the extended family could naturally assume greater public visibility over time, not because of a dramatic policy shift, but because the institution's needs continued to evolve. Few families appeared better prepared for that possibility than the Edinburghs. For more than 2 decades, Prince Edward and Sophie built an extraordinary record of public service without attracting constant headlines. Their calendars filled with visits to charities, educational organizations, military associations, and community projects across the United Kingdom and overseas. There was no fanfare, no constant publicity, just consistency. Again and again, year after year. That quiet reliability earned respect inside and outside royal circles. Even Queen Elizabeth II was widely understood to value Sophie's calm judgment and unwavering sense of duty. Royal biographers have frequently described their relationship as one built on mutual trust, developed through years of shared responsibilities and private family support. Trust. It is a simple word, yet within the monarchy, it may be one of the most valuable qualities anyone can possess. Because titles can be inherited, public admiration can rise and fall, but trust is earned, one engagement at a time, one decision at a time, one decade at a time. That may explain why Lady Louise has increasingly attracted positive attention whenever she appears at national occasions. Although she has remained largely focused on her education and private life, many observers have commented on her composure and confidence during public events. Rather than seeking attention, she has often appeared comfortable, allowing the occasion itself to remain the focus. It is an approach remarkably similar to her mother's. James has followed an even quieter path. Very little of his life has unfolded before cameras. That privacy has allowed him to grow up without many of the pressures experienced by previous generations of young royals. Whether he ultimately chooses a public role remains unknown. No official announcement has suggested otherwise, but the conversation surrounding his future continues to grow. And that conversation says just as much about the monarchy as it does about James himself. Because every generation eventually asks the same question: who comes next? Not only to inherit the crown, but to help sustain it. Prince William undoubtedly understands that challenge better than almost anyone alive. As Prince of Wales, his responsibilities have steadily expanded, reflecting both constitutional tradition and the practical realities of preparing for kingship. His public engagements increasingly place him at the forefront of national and international events, while his long-term initiatives on homelessness, mental health, and environmental innovation demonstrate a desire to combine continuity with modern priorities. Those responsibilities cannot be carried alone. No monarch has ever succeeded entirely alone. History tells a different story. Queen Elizabeth II relied upon a wider network of dedicated family members throughout her reign. King George VI did the same. Even Queen Victoria depended upon trusted relatives who represented the crown across Britain and the wider Commonwealth. The institution has always been larger than one person. Perhaps that is why today's discussions feel so significant. not because anyone has announced a dramatic transformation, but because careful observers recognize familiar patterns from history, periods of transition, emerging generations, quiet preparation, steady hands moving gradually toward greater responsibility. And just when it seems those pieces are beginning to fit together, another remarkable detail begins to emerge, one connected not to James, not to Lady Louise, but to a decision made years ago that may reveal why Sophie herself became one of the most trusted figures in the modern royal family, and why that legacy could influence the monarchy for decades still to come. What followed was not a dramatic announcement. It was something far more revealing: consistency. Over the course of her years as a working royal, Sophie quietly developed a reputation that reached well beyond palace walls. While public attention often centered on headline-making moments elsewhere in the family, she continued visiting charities, hospitals, schools, military organizations, and humanitarian projects with remarkably little fanfare. There was no campaign for recognition, no carefully manufactured image, just service, again and again. That consistency became one of her defining strengths. Royal correspondents frequently observed that Sophie earned respect not because she demanded attention, but because she rarely appeared distracted by it. Her approach reflected a philosophy that had guided the late Queen Elizabeth II throughout her reign, that public duty was measured less by headlines than by commitment over time. It was an old-fashioned idea, perhaps even unfashionable, yet it continued to resonate, especially during a period when the monarchy faced unprecedented public scrutiny. Every appearance mattered, every speech was examined, every gesture analyzed. Against that backdrop, quiet reliability became increasingly valuable. One overseas visit in particular demonstrated the depth of Sophie's work. As the King's special representative for preventing sexual violence in conflict, Sophie visited communities affected by war, meeting survivors and working alongside international organizations committed to supporting women and children. Those engagements were not ceremonial alone. They reflected years of sustained involvement in humanitarian issues that often received little public attention despite their importance. That work rarely dominated front pages, yet within diplomatic and charitable circles, it strengthened her reputation considerably. The same pattern could be seen across her wider portfolio. Whether supporting initiatives focused on preventable blindness, women's rights, education, or military families, Sophie consistently chose causes requiring long-term commitment rather than brief publicity. It revealed something important. Her influence had been built quietly, not suddenly. That distinction matters because institutions like the monarchy rarely place greater trust in individuals based on a single successful appearance. Confidence develops over years of demonstrated judgment, discretion, and reliability. Historians often point out that some of the most influential members of the royal family were not always those who attracted the most headlines, but those who consistently strengthened the institution through dependable service. Sophie increasingly came to represent that tradition. So did Edward. For decades, the Duke of Edinburgh carried out hundreds of official engagements each year while supporting organizations connected to young people, sport, culture, and the Duke of Edinburgh Award, one of Prince Philip's most enduring legacies. His work seldom generated dramatic news coverage, yet it formed part of the steady rhythm that keeps the monarchy connected to communities across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. Together, Edward and Sophie became something increasingly rare, predictable, in the best possible sense. Royal households depend upon predictability. Governments do too. Charities certainly do. When an engagement appears on the calendar months in advance, organizations rely on confidence that it will proceed professionally. That dependable approach helped establish the Edinburgh family as trusted representatives of the Crown. Perhaps that explains why discussions about the monarchy's future often include their names. Not because anyone has announced sweeping constitutional reforms, not because secret plans have been confirmed, but because experienced observers understand that succession involves far more than one individual inheriting the throne. A successful reign depends upon the people surrounding the monarch. Trusted advisors, experienced family members, dedicated public servants. History demonstrates that repeatedly. Queen Elizabeth II relied upon Prince Philip's unwavering support for more than 70 decades. She also depended upon Princess Anne, the Duke of Kent, the Duke of Gloucester, Princess Alexandra, and many other working members of the family whose public service strengthened the institution far from television cameras. Every reign tells the same story. The monarch may stand at the center, but the institution stands together. That is why conversations surrounding William's future remain so compelling. As his constitutional responsibilities continue expanding, many royal analysts have naturally begun asking who will help sustain the demanding schedule expected of a modern sovereign. Those discussions remain exactly that, analysis rather than official policy, but they reflect genuine questions about how the monarchy will continue adapting in the decades ahead. Lady Louise and James are frequently mentioned within that wider conversation, not because their future has been officially decided. Far from it. Their paths remain their own, yet public interest has grown precisely because they represent a generation raised with both royal tradition and an appreciation for ordinary life. Their upbringing, carefully guided by Edward and Sophie, has often been cited as an example of balancing privilege with responsibility. It is a balance that cannot be taught overnight. It must be lived, day after day, year after year. And perhaps that is the greatest legacy Edward and Sophie have already created, not simply the titles attached to their names, but the values they appear to have passed to the next generation. Those values may prove increasingly important as the monarchy continues evolving. But just when it seems the picture is becoming clearer, one final piece of the puzzle changes everything. Because behind the public ceremonies, the official photographs, and the carefully planned appearances lies a much bigger question, one that reaches beyond titles altogether. It asks whether Prince William's vision for the future monarchy is already becoming visible through the people who consistently embody service above status. And that final answer may be closer than anyone realizes. The longer this story unfolds, the clearer one truth becomes. The conversation has never really been about titles alone. Titles may capture attention, they make headlines, they spark debate. But within the British monarchy, a title has always carried another meaning: responsibility, expectation, continuity. That is why so many royal historians encourage people to look beyond the announcement itself and instead ask a more important question. What does this tell us about the institution? When viewed through that wider lens, the Edinburgh family occupies a unique position. Unlike the direct line of succession, they have never carried the expectation of one day wearing the crown. At the same time, they have remained closely connected to the monarchy's daily work, representing it with consistency while largely avoiding the intense public scrutiny that often follows those closest to the throne. That combination is unusual, close enough to understand the institution, independent enough to develop their own identity. Over time, that balance has become one of their greatest strengths. It also reflects something Prince William has spoken about publicly on numerous occasions throughout his royal life: service. Whether discussing homelessness, environmental innovation, emergency responders, or mental health, William has repeatedly emphasized that the monarchy's future depends upon remaining relevant through meaningful public service rather than ceremony alone. It is a philosophy rooted in action, not appearance; results, not spectacle. Many royal commentators believe that this broader emphasis on service explains why working members of the royal family who consistently perform their duties with professionalism often earn increasing public respect over time. While no official statement has suggested that future responsibilities have already been assigned to Lady Louise or James, observers continue to note how closely their family's values align with the qualities frequently associated with modern royal service. That alignment is difficult to ignore. Consider the example set inside their own home. Edward and Sophie chose to raise their children with an appreciation for ordinary experiences alongside royal tradition. Education remained a priority. Privacy was carefully protected. Public appearances were measured rather than frequent. It was never about creating celebrity. It was about building character. Looking back now, many people see that approach differently. Not because history has changed, because perspective has. The qualities once described as quiet now appear remarkably valuable: humility, patience, discretion, steadiness. Those are not traits that dominate social media, yet they remain essential within institutions expected to endure for generations. Perhaps that is why public affection for Sophie has steadily grown over the years. Polls, commentary, and feature articles have frequently highlighted the respect she has earned through consistency rather than publicity. While popularity naturally rises and falls for every public figure, Sophie has generally maintained an image of reliability that appeals to many people who value stability within the monarchy. It is an image built slowly, almost invisibly, until suddenly everyone notices. The same could eventually be said of the next generation. Lady Louise has often been praised for her composed public appearances and thoughtful manner, while James continues to mature largely outside constant media attention. Their futures remain their own to choose, and no official announcement has committed either of them to becoming full-time working royals. That distinction matters because choice has become an increasingly important part of the modern monarchy. Previous generations often inherited expectations with little room for personal direction. Today's generation faces different realities. Public life is more demanding. Media attention is constant. Private decisions quickly become global headlines. Against that backdrop, the measured way Edward and Sophie have introduced their children to public life has attracted considerable interest from royal observers, not because it guarantees what comes next, because it preserves possibilities. And perhaps that is exactly where this story becomes most fascinating. The future has not been announced. It is unfolding, one careful step at a time. Every appearance, every engagement, every decision. Together, they form a picture that is still being completed. Prince William understands better than most that public confidence is not secured through one speech or one ceremony. It is built gradually through years of visible commitment, thoughtful leadership, and trusted people working together toward the same purpose. History suggests that every successful reign depends upon that foundation. King George VI relied upon family. Queen Elizabeth II relied upon family. King Charles continues to rely upon family. The future will likely be no different. Exactly who fills those roles in the decades ahead remains a matter for time, personal choice, and official decisions. But one conclusion already seems difficult to dispute. The Edinburgh family has demonstrated that quiet dedication can leave one of the deepest impressions of all. And the next chapter of the House of Windsor continues to unfold. Another remarkable question is beginning to emerge. It is not simply who will wear the crown. It is who the future king will trust most when the weight of that crown finally rests upon his shoulders. The answer to that question brings this story to its most revealing moment, and it changes the way everything that came before should be understood. The more closely this story is examined, the less it resembles a tale about one title or one family milestone. Instead, it becomes a story about continuity, about preparation, about a monarchy that has always evolved, even when those changes happened quietly. Throughout British history, every generation has faced the same challenge: how to preserve centuries of tradition while responding to the expectations of a changing world. Some transitions unfolded through sweeping reforms. Others happened so gradually that most people only recognized their significance years later. This may prove to be one of those moments, not because Buckingham Palace has announced a dramatic transformation, not because a constitutional rule has suddenly changed, but because the conversations surrounding the Edinburgh family reveal what many people value most in the modern monarchy: steadiness, humility, service. Those qualities have defined Prince Edward and Sophie for decades, long before public attention shifted toward them, long before royal commentators began asking whether their children might one day play larger public roles. They simply continued serving, quietly, faithfully, consistently. That may ultimately become their greatest legacy. Not the titles attached to their names, not the ceremonies, not the photographs, but the example they have set for Lady Louise, for James, and perhaps for the next generation of working royals. History often reminds us that institutions endure because each generation leaves something valuable for the next. Queen Elizabeth II left behind an extraordinary example of lifelong public duty. Prince Philip's legacy continues through initiatives that encourage leadership and resilience among young people. King Charles has emphasized environmental stewardship and a streamlined approach to royal service. Prince William has focused much of his public work on homelessness, mental health, and innovative solutions to social challenges. Each generation builds upon the last, not by erasing history, by adding to it. That is why the future of the Edinburgh family continues to attract such interest. No official roadmap has been published. No palace announcement has declared what roles Lady Louise or James will ultimately choose. Their futures remain exactly that, their own.
Yet, if the past has demonstrated anything, it is that preparation often begins long before responsibility officially arrives. Character is developed quietly. Experience accumulates gradually. Confidence is earned over years rather than moments. Those lessons have shaped every successful generation of the royal family.
Perhaps they are shaping another one now. Prince William's own journey illustrates that reality. For decades, he has prepared for responsibilities that cannot truly begin until the moment history calls upon him. Every engagement, every meeting, every charitable initiative has added another layer to that preparation. When that day eventually arrives, he will inherit not only a crown, but also an institution built upon relationships, trust, and the willingness of others to serve alongside him. No monarch stands alone. None ever has. The strongest reigns have always depended upon dedicated people working together with a shared sense of purpose. Whether the next generation of the Edinburgh family ultimately assumes a larger public role remains a matter for time, personal choice, and decisions within the constitutional framework of the monarchy. But one thing already appears beyond doubt. Edward and Sophie have shown that influence is not measured by the volume of attention someone receives. It is measured by consistency, by integrity, by quiet service performed even when very few people are watching. In many ways, that lesson extends beyond the royal family itself. It speaks to leadership, to family, to legacy, to the idea that the people who shape history are not always those standing in the brightest spotlight, but often those working patiently behind it. Perhaps that is why this story has resonated with so many people around the world. It is not simply about royalty. It is about values that remain timeless. Duty over recognition, character over popularity, commitment over applause. As Britain continues watching the next chapter of the House of Windsor unfold, there will undoubtedly be more announcements, more ceremonies, and more moments that capture global attention. Some will dominate headlines, others may pass almost unnoticed. Yet history suggests that the quiet moments are sometimes the ones that matter most. The ones that reveal how the future is taking shape long before the rest of the world fully recognizes it. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within this remarkable story. The future of the monarchy will not be defined by one title, nor by one ceremony, nor by one generation alone. It will be shaped by the people who continue showing up, carrying out their responsibilities with dignity, and preserving an institution that has adapted through centuries of change. That journey is still unfolding, and with every passing year, another piece of the picture comes into focus, because the next great chapter of the royal family may already be underway, not through dramatic headlines, but through the quiet decisions, steady leadership, and enduring sense of service that have always formed the strongest foundation of the crown. And if you think this story was surprising, wait until the next investigation. We'll examine why royal historians are revisiting one little-known promise connected to the late Queen Elizabeth II and how its long-term implications could influence the future roles of several younger members of the royal family in ways that are only now beginning to be understood. Until then, the story continues.